Good morning, everybody. It's so nice to have you with us today. And we're really, really fortunate that dear Murali could be with us today. And just before we introduce our beautiful guest, as people are just logging in, we just wanted to say hello. I'm Kalamali for anyone that hasn't met me.
And I'm Nara. We're coming from Sydney today, and we're so fortunate to have everyone come along. With some
beautiful souls here.
Some great souls coming along, and
we have our mixture from New Zealand and Australia, and we just wanted to say to everybody that for those of you who can join, we moved our weekly satsang to Wednesday. That's for our group here, and we have those 2 retreats still coming up. One in August with Kavita for the New Zealand folk who can go, or anybody from Australia, and then we also have one here in New South Wales, Australia, coming in September. And so I'm just going to drop our little link for more information on all that in the chat. And we're going to go ahead and introduce our dear friend Murali. So you may have already seen Murali speak. He's really well known. He's one of the most kind of amazing things about Murali is his gift for storytelling. And so the story of the Gayatri Mantra is one of the ones that over 1 million people have seen on YouTube. And he just has this incredible way of bringing humor and inspiration and creativity into these teachings in a way of sharing them that is very deep and yet uplifting, which brings us to our theme for today's talk with our dear friend. And that is uplift yourself, uplift the world, which is just based on the Spiritual Renewal Week that we just finished at Ananda Sangha Worldwide. And did you want to share that?
Yeah, absolutely. And probably people may not be aware that Murali has a PhD, and he's had such 20 years of absolute experience within the yoga community, and it's kind of interesting. We were just chatting about the fact that the science has been sort of introduced to Yogananda, a master, but then he brought it with everything he did, was the science behind it. And then Murali was talking about how Swami really promoted the science within the communities, and he was talking about how the communities have had scientists from all different elements across the yogi plane. And so I feel the one word that I could, if I could or may, is Murali just brings a sense of balance to all things within the yogi world. And apart from being one of my favorite storytellers, I think, that I've ever heard, it's such a blessing to have you with us, Murali. And I think to start off, we are going to, just the format today is if everyone can just stay on mute for a while, and if you have any questions throughout the chat, just pop it in the chat. So just please just jump on and put any questions that you want to. And I think we'll leave about 15 or 20 minutes towards the end of this time that we can then sort of read out any questions as best we can in that time frame. I think as yogis, we could all go on forever with question and answer time, but we're really blessed. And without further ado, we can pass over to Murali to lead us in a prayer to start. And then after that prayer, we'll do a quick chant, and then Murali will lead us today. So it's so wonderful to see you all. Many blessings, and thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kalamali and Nara. Thank you all. It's wonderful to be amongst you. So let's, as always, come into our center, our spine. Close the eyes and let's pray together. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswar, beloved Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, saints of all religions, Humbly, we bow to you all. Divine Mother, bless us and be among us today. With the power of concentration, help us to burn away all attachment, all desire. Let our inner gaze be fixed on the beacon of thy light, guiding us home to thee. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Amen.
And we'll be playing a beautiful song called Blessed.
Blessed, blessed, the life that is given to God. Blessed, blessed, the ways where his feet have trod, all the joys that human heart can know. May his love on you bestow. May all dangers from your path be moved, all delusion by his truth disproved. Blessed, blessed, the life that is given to God. Blessed, blessed, the heart open to his love. Blessed, blessed, the light that shines from above. All the wealth for which man never schemed, all the beauty ever dreamed, all the gains for which men sigh and moan, will be harvested in God alone. Blessed, blessed, the heart open to his love.
What a beautiful chant. Blessed the life that is given to God. And before I go ahead, I just wanted to check with Nara and Kalamali. You guys have any other announcements to begin the proceedings? Okay. So good morning to all of you over there. I'm told that there are potentially people here from Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Hong Kong, and maybe other places. It's so wonderful to be with other devotees. There's one thing we always realize in Ananda, which is no matter where you go, you could be meeting them in Russia, Ukraine, Australia, California, Washington, doesn't really matter. There's an instant sense of familiarity. because what we all seek is the same. And more importantly, let me turn things around a little bit, that what we seek to get rid of is also the same. And that's kind of what I'll be talking about today, is turn the entire spiritual equation on its head and look at it from the other side. So that the spiritual renewal week, which just got over, I think for you guys, it'll be 2 weeks ago. For me, I'm still okay to call it last week. The theme, as Kalamali said, was uplift yourself, uplift the world. And if you haven't watched the talks, I really encourage you to do so. I've been to many of them. I can't even count how many. And this was one of the deepest ones. Every time somebody finished talking, we'd all say, okay, this is good. I think we should end here. You can meditate the rest of the time. And then the next person would come along and it'd be something else extraordinary. So really, I'd encourage you to watch it. But I wanted to take a slightly there is a very important sense in yoga where what you don't do is as important as what you do. And another way of looking at it is one of the many things that I do here is I lead the yoga teacher training, and I've been doing that for maybe 15 years now. And every yoga teacher training, we get students from various abilities and various conceptions of themselves. And we promise them that at the end of the yoga teacher training, all of them will be able to do headstand. And, it's this pose where you stand on your head. I say we promise them. Probably it's more fair to say that we threaten them that we'll all make you do headstand. And people are naturally suspicious of that dubious claim that we've just made, but they kind of indulge us. And in my experience over the last 15 or so years, 95% of the people will be able to do headstand. But here's the thing. We don't actually teach them headstand. Teaching somebody how to stand on the head is actually very straightforward. You know what it involves. All we say, how do you instruct a headstand? Is everybody kneel on the floor, put your forearms on the floor, head on the floor, and lift your legs. There is nothing else. That's just like saying, stand on your head. But we spend a lot of time teaching them how not to fall. You see, that's the key. Everybody can do headstand. Again, I'll understand if you're suspicious of this, but everybody can do headstand as long as you learn not to fall. That's all the trick there is. And when you're up there, your legs are up there, the force of gravity is unrelenting. You wouldn't have, unless you've jumped out of a building, which I hope you haven't, you wouldn't have felt gravity the way you do when you're standing on your head. Because here's what happens. You're up there kind of, you're going along, it's just beautiful, everything looks weird from upside down, and you're enjoying it. And then there is a slight disturbance. Something, one of the legs moves this way, or you want to adjust your shoulder, and then begins the downfall. And unless you know how to control it, suddenly that thing amplifies itself, and before you know it, your legs are on the floor. Okay, so what we teach them is how not to fall. If you learn how not to fall, then you know how to do headstand. The spiritual part is exactly like this. Is the trick on the spiritual part is not so much uplifting yourself. You see, because uplifting yourself is natural. Swami Kriyananda used to say that the soul, Yogananda used to say, and Swamiji wrote about this. He said the soul loves to meditate. The ego doesn't. And in other places, it's said in various other ways that you are already that which you seek. The peace that you seek, the bliss that you seek, the transcendence that you seek is yours already, as long as you remove all the gunk. So this approach to yoga, this approach to spiritual path, which involves saying, I want to get rid of this. This is not what I'm seeking. No, this is not what I'm seeking. And when you eliminate all the things that you don't seek, and when you get rid of all the things that are not natural to you, what remains is God. And this approach is, it's a neti, not this, not that. There is a $10 Sanskrit term for this. It's called Jnana Yoga. So let's, now there is another aspect to this. Let me put in another thought, and then we'll jump into this. There are these relatively newer type of bicycle where I don't know what you call it in the various countries you're all from. It's here in the US, we call them a fixie, F-I-X-I-E. And what a fixie is it's an interesting type of bicycle. The pedals always move with the wheels, okay? There is no coasting. You are either pedaling forward or you're resisting and you're pedaling backwards. There are no brakes, there is no coasting. That's also the spiritual path, is there is no such thing as a neutral action. A thought, an action is either taking us towards God, meaning it helps us cooperate with grace, or it's taking us towards delusion. We cooperate with the downpulling, darkening force. In other words, it takes very little thought, very little meditation to realize that when we say, oh, I'll wait once all the crisis in my life goes away and then I'll dedicate myself to God, that doesn't work, because you are either pedaling forward or you're pedaling backward. You see what I'm saying? You're either standing on your head or you're preparing to fall. Those are the only two modes. And there's a very famous, the Bhagavad Gita, the great Indian scripture, which, as you know, is a conversation between Arjuna, the devotee, and Krishna, the teacher. There is a verse there in chapter 3 where Krishna says that no one can remain actionless even for a moment. All are compelled by nature, either willingly or unwillingly, to be active. And that's an important reason why we have to pay as much attention to not falling as we pay attention to being uplifted, because there is the discernment, the buddhi, the faculty of discernment always examines, saying, with this one, did I just pedal backwards or did I pedal forwards? With this one, did I get disturbed and am I getting ready to fall, or am I straighter? So I'll spend the rest of my talk about not falling. And I said all of this so that you wouldn't think that this is a very negative approach. It isn't. It's at the heart of yoga, is to figure this out. So the other point here is, it's not that we somehow reach a stage in our spiritual development where we are not susceptible to falling anymore. Because the simple fact is, if you're not there, you're here. You see, it's very quantized. It's very binary, at least in that aspect. Judas, for example, Yogananda said that he was a very high soul. And he has to be. He was accepted within the inner circle of Jesus Christ. How could he not be a high soul? But he was tempted by one of the basest of all instincts, which is money. Saint Peter, arguably Jesus's most favorite disciple, and our most favorite disciple too. I mean, everybody loves Peter, right? It's him too. I was surprised when I found this out. Did you know that he was prone to anger? Saint Peter was. How interesting is that? And keep that in mind, because anger plays an important role in determining how not to fall. In fact, it's the linchpin. I'll come to that later. But again, Yogananda, Swami Kriyananda recalls Yogananda telling the disciples again and again and again, until one reaches Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Nirvikalpa, it's a Sanskrit term. Let me break it down for you. It's kind of interesting. Kalpa means time. Not time in the sense of a clock ticking, but time in the sense of change. Okay? Because change and time are basically two aspects of the same thing. Vikalpa is lot of change. So continuous change. Nirvikalpa is therefore, nir means not. So not continuous change means not any change, completely still. So nirvikalpa samadhi is samadhi that is not subject to deterioration, to decay. In other words, one is always there and only comes back here by their choice. In other words, if they come back here, they are an avatar. Otherwise, they are always with God. And this is, Swamiji writes again and again, that Master emphasized, Yogananda emphasized that until one attains Nirvikalpa Samadhi, one is not safe. Now, I don't mean to paint a very grim picture of the spiritual path. I just want to offer a different aspect of it. And I'll come to the positive side of this soon. So bear with me. Then the question becomes, in order to uplift our consciousness, it's very important to understand how not to fall. So there are three aspects to this. Let me list them out first, and then I'll fill in some of the details. The first one is, the most important one is, in order to prevent that falling, we would want to know God. It's no longer a concept. It's not even an emotion, something that we sprinkle strategically into our speech so that other people are convinced and impressed with our spirituality. Of course, none of us does that. And I'm just saying that it's not an emotion, but it is reflected in our action. That wanting to know God is reflected in our action. What do I mean by that? So there is a very charming little story in the Mahabharata, which I'm sure you've heard of. In the Mahabharata, there are the good guys who are known as the Pandavas, and the bad guys who are known as the Kauravas. Now, the effective leaders of each of them, and they are the ones that are fighting. Of course, the good guys and the bad guys fight. There's nothing new in that basic concept. And the leader of the good guys is a man named Arjuna. Now, Arjuna is, I don't really know how to characterize him, but he's a combination of maybe James Bond and Saint Peter. That's probably the best way to say it. I'm sure I'll be struck by lightning at some point in the near future, but think of him as filled with so much panache, that panache that comes with extraordinary achievement, that he's a warrior that everybody else wants to be. And at the same time, somewhere along his path of being a warrior, his entire heart is tempered, it is filled, it is bubbling with devotion. That's Arjuna. Now, Duryodhana, on the other hand, the simplest way of thinking about him is he's like a mafia enforcer kind of guy. He speaks with the voice of Marlon Brando in the Godfather, that kind of, you're either with me or you're against me. I'll make you an offer you can't refuse. He's really that way. And in other words, he's driven by pure base instinct. Now, Arjuna and Duryodhana have prepared for war, but and they've really, there is, you can say one is good this way, one is good, the other army is good the other way, but there is one man who can still decide the fate of the war just by deciding which side to fight for. And that man's name is Krishna. Now, Krishna is not only crossed over, he's not only over there, a fully self-realized master, but it is also said that he is actually God in human form. And therefore, talking about how powerful he is, what his abilities are, really besides the point. And so there comes a time when both Duryodhana and Arjuna come and they want to enlist Krishna on their side. And Krishna is sleeping. And he's sleeping with a gentle smile on his face as if he knows what's going to happen next. And Arjuna, being the devotee, he stands by Krishna's feet, because that's what devotees do. He just cannot bear himself to go anywhere else. And Duryodhana, being a little haughty, he stands at Krishna's head, and he's standing there kind of really, restless, kind of jumping, dancing on his feet, wake up, wake up, wake up kind of stuff. And Arjuna is sitting here just happy to be in Krishna's presence. And Krishna wakes up and he sees, naturally, if somebody is standing at your feet, somebody else at your head, when you wake up, whom do you see? You see the person standing at your feet. So he breaks into a smile and he says, Arjuna, so nice to see you. When did you come? And behind him, he hears, and that's Duryodhana standing there. And, oh, Duryodhana, you're there too. I didn't see you for a moment. You're behind me. And he says, okay, what can I do for you both? And so he says, Arjuna, since I saw you first, you can ask me first. And Duryodhana is thinking, darn, I should have stood by the feet. Now Arjuna will get it. And Krishna says, I know what you've come to get. And I'll offer you the choice. I have one of the biggest armies on the earth, which he does, an entire couple of battalions. And they are very powerful. They've proven themselves in battle. And then he says, there is me. He says, one of you can choose my army, one of you can choose me. But here's the thing, I won't fight. Whomever chooses me, just know that I won't fight. I'll just hang around, I'll be there, but I won't lift a weapon. And then he tells Arjuna, since I saw you first, you get. And Duryodhana says, please, 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 don't choose the army, don't choose the army. And Arjuna says, Krishna, where there is you, there is victory. So I choose you. It's okay, even if you don't fight. Duryodhana says, what a moron. I want the army, chooses the army. And you know what happens in battle, even though Krishna doesn't fight, there come key moments when the Pandavas, the good guys, are about to be defeated. And Krishna says, have you considered doing this? There's just that little guidance that he offers again and again. And I can speak for an hour or 2 hours on this, and I often have, but I won't this time. But just know that this ends up being the most strategic choice that Arjuna could have made. And needless to say, the Pandavas end up winning. And the moral of the story, as Swami Kriyananda explains it, is that we have to want God in our action, that when there is any number of other things that we can choose, that we have to want to choose God. And there are simple examples. When I'm preparing for a satsang like this or other talks, there is this need to go crack open a book. There is this need to do that. And of course, I do that. But then I've learned over the years that the best thing I can do is to sit and meditate. In addition to doing all that, all the prep, the most important thing of sharing these teachings is to sit and meditate. It's the choice that the Duryodhana within us wants to get up and do something. Get me the army of books, let me pick up the phone and talk to somebody, let me see all of this. And the Arjuna within us just standing by the foot of God and saying, you are enough. So choosing God, several people brought this up during Spiritual Renewal Week, and Swami has written about this. And it is that Kundalini, to awaken Kundalini, which is the sign of spiritual progress, the vitality of delusion begins to magnetize itself upwards the spine, is Kundalini rises a little bit. Kundalini rises a little bit when we do an unselfish act. Kundalini rises a little bit when we choose to meditate for 30 minutes instead of sleeping for 30 minutes. Kundalini rises rises a little bit when we are being truthful. When we don't say those little lies of omission, commission, or convenience. And Kundalini rises a little bit not to be angry. But now this is great, but here's the thing. When we do the opposite, remember it's a bike with no coasting mode, and we do the opposite, when we are not kind, when we kind of say, yeah, today I've earned my sleep, I'll just sleep a little bit more, that kind of stuff, Kundalini coils itself a little more tightly. You see, that's so how not to fall. Constantly make God your friend through the actions. Okay, that's the key. Now, is this easy? Of course. Is this a little hard? No, it's this thing that we can do. But if is the spiritual path really that unforgiving that you either pedal forwards and move towards God or pedal backwards and drop down into the depths of hell? Is it really that unforgiving? Thankfully, the answer is no, absolutely not. How could it be? How could it be? It is a path of compassion, kindness, and grace. It certainly cannot be that unforgiving, but there is a science behind that too. And it's very useful to understand the mechanism of that. There is in the Gospel of Matthew, which it's among the four Gospels, it's the one with Matthew is one of my favorites mostly because among all the Gospels, it contains the most words directly from Jesus. It's all of his, through Jesus's life, actually, during his short ministry, there's only 5 times that he gives these public sermons. They're called the 5 discourses of Jesus. And all 5 appear in Matthew. So it's actually beautiful to read. And in there, Jesus tells the parable of the weeds. And what it is there's a farmer. Oh, good heavens, it's a little past 5:30. I better speed this along. There's a farmer that has sown some wheat in the field. And while he sleeps, the enemy comes in and plants some weed in there. And the next day, after a few days, the helpers come along and say, sir, our enemies have planted weed. The weeds are now growing. Should we remove it? And you know what the farmer says? He's a very wise man. He says, no, don't remove it. Let it grow, but let the wheat also grow. And when there comes harvest time, you can pull out the weeds. If you do it now, you will be at the risk of pulling out the wheat as well. Now, Yogananda gave a very wonderful explanation of this. He said that the wheat is the fruit of our spiritual efforts, our service, our sadhana, the satsangs, all of those. It's the fruit of our spiritual efforts. And the weed is the karmic seeds that we've brought with us. And so he says, strengthen your spiritual qualities first, and then you will be able to uproot these karmic tendencies. Otherwise, you will be in danger of just giving up and going back. Okay, so what it means is, say you skip a meditation, say you overindulged, or you got angry, or whatever. It's okay. It's it is not a big deal in the deepest sense, meaning don't identify with it. That is not me. In other words, be cognizant of what we are really here for. That's a weed. It's okay. I know I've not pulled it out yet. I'll get to it. But right now, if I cannot stop being angry, if I cannot stop eating that extra piece of cheesecake, if I cannot stop getting up at 4 and meditating every day, which you don't need to do, by the way, get up at 4. I mean, moderation is the heart of yoga. But, just to make a point, it's okay. I mean, after all, if we could do it perfectly, people come and ask me all the time that I'm not very flexible, therefore I don't want to do yoga. And my answer always is, if you were flexible, why would you need to do yoga? You see, this is similar. That, of course, we'll we will recognize those tendencies, but don't identify with it. That's the key. That's the second trick to not falling. Is if you do sense that you've fallen, don't identify with it. Just go by. It's what you do in Hong Sau. When you're watching your breath, those of you that are familiar with the practice, we watch the breath. And if we are unable to, it's okay. Nothing happened. You just go back to watching the breath. Don't dwell on it. Okay, so that's the second key. The third one is remembering who we really are. What do I mean by that? It's there's a beautiful story of Adi Shankara, who established the Swami order. When he was 12 years old, he's already such a great spiritual soul that he's already learned the essence of all the scriptures. He's had deep meditative experiences, but the thing missing for him is the guru. So he needs to find a guru, and he knows exactly who it is. So he goes to his guru. And the guru, who is a very well-known person, and he gets a lot of these people seeking to be his disciple, he always asks him, whomever comes to be his disciple, he asks them, who are you? Tell me who you are. And most people tell that, oh, I am the son of so-and-so. I come from such and such a family. I have studied this one, and and the guru rejects them. And other people say, sir, I'm the son of so-and-so. I come from this family. I have meditated for so long, but I've committed these sins, because they want to be truthful, you see. And the guru looks at them, okay, that is better, but no, you can't be a disciple either. So Shankara goes to him. He's a 12-year-old boy. And the guru asks him, okay, he says, who are you? And the answer Shankara gives. He answers in Sanskrit. And I'll tell you the exact part of the Sanskrit answer he gives. This is how Shankara begins. He says, Mano buddhi rahankara chittani naham, nacha shrotra jihve, nacha ghrana netre, nacha vyoma bhumir, na tejo na vayuhu, chidananda rupa shivoham shivoham. Chidananda rupa shivoham shivoham. Now, you know what that means. Have you all heard of the chant, no birth, no death, no caste have I, father, mother have I none. I am he, blessed spirit, I am he. That's Yogananda translated Shankara's words into that chant. Okay, it's a beautiful chant, listen to it, or perhaps next time you can chant it. But that's what Shankara says. He says, who are you? He says, no births, no death, no caste have I, father, mother have I none. I am he, blessed spirit, I am he. So he has no identifications beyond his divine nature. Okay, that's when Yogananda was himself initiated into the Swami order. He says, I chanted happily a few lines from the ancient chant of Adi Shankaracharya. And he says, if you look in the footnote in Autobiography of a Yogi, this is the one that he chants, but it's a beautiful chant. But anyway, where I was going with it was that this is, Jesus said the same thing, that no man hath ascended up to heaven, but him that came down from heaven. In other words, that we go to Nirvikalpa Samadhi because that was our state. No more. So remembering that, being in that all the time. And Swami Kriyananda gives a wonderful exercise to do. And Yogananda writes this in one of his earliest articles in the Clarity magazine, I think is way back in 1938 or something like that. He says, every night when you go to bed, close your eyes, build a mental bonfire. And into that bonfire, offer everything, with the good things and the bad things, because the energy to do the good things and the energy to do the bad things came from you, Lord, and therefore I offer it back to you. What did the good thing was not me? You did it. What did the bad thing was not me either? You did it. So it's all yours. Take it. And then it says, if you haven't done that practice, I'd encourage you to consider doing it. It's a wonderful way of not so much dealing with life's experiences. That's not yoga, that's psychology. We don't deal with life's experience, send it, do we not? That's how not to fall. Very simply put, is to never think that you've fallen. A saint is a sinner that never gave up. Or the worst sin, Yogananda loved to say, the worst sin is to think of yourself as a sinner. So how not to fall is, again, Yogananda saying, if you want to know God, live in the thought that you have him already. Let me end there, and let's just sit in meditation. Sit up straight. Just we won't do this for too long. Just a couple of minutes. Just sit up straight. Close your eyes. Chest up, shoulders down. The body relaxed. Gaze at your spiritual eye. Imagine a bonfire there, the bonfire of divine grace. And pick one thing today, from the time that you got up, where you perhaps could have done better. And then just actively toss it into the bonfire. Say, this too is you, Lord. This is not I. And stay for a minute or so, receiving the blessings from that fire of divine grace. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Amen.
Thank you so much, Murali. We're just so grateful. That was a beautiful talk, and it just shed light on how this path is full of wisdom, fueled by devotion. There was just so much devotion in what you were saying, and it just, the exercise that you did for us at the end was wonderful. Be sure to do that more.
I love the viewpoint. It's such a turn it on its head. Just a beautiful, beautiful way to look at it. And yeah, it's yeah, wonderful. And I guess now it's sort of passing on to anyone. Does anyone have any questions or comments to do with that? We'll start.
And feel free to also share, you know, who you are and where you're logging in from, because I think in the past we've sort of haven't been able to share, you know, with everybody who's here. And so people think that would be fun. We could tell Murali where you're logging in from. I know we do have our New Zealand group here and there throughout their country. I see a group from Melbourne, Raul, Ashwin and Bhaktiyan, and Naraya's here from New Zealand. Anne's here from the Blue Mountains. We have John in Brisbane, Monica, and is that Brisbane area too?
Yeah. Shelley, New Zealand, Kavita.
It's just so great that you all could join us. So yeah, feel free to type in any questions. I'm gonna put Murali's full little bio in here, because I know there's some people that have shared they would love to hear or chat with Murali more about his background and his science of yoga interests. You know, he's been a mind of science throughout his life, but just there's his full bio. He's also really active at Ananda Washington. I don't know if you heard him mention, but as the director of the Ananda Institute of Living Yoga there, he's got a lot of, he could answer any question you may have about just yoga. I know one of the things that I just kind of was taking notes about the Kundalini. And it's one of the things somebody just said, and I'm sure we can all agree, we feel hope. Like you've left us with so much hope that no matter what, you know, patterns we might have gotten into, we can just step out of that.
I've got a question, Murali, and it's about, because obviously we spoke around, or maybe if you could just share a little bit more around the grace of the guru in this process. So we spoke, that was a very, you know, we're always up and down, and you touched on it, but maybe even expand a little bit on the grace of the guru and where they fit within this.
Yeah, certainly. There are a couple of ways of looking at it, and I'll offer you both perspectives. One way is, as I said, knowing what to do is relatively straightforward. After all, you know, get up, think of God, meditate, serve others, tell the truth, and you're home free. But knowing what not to do, and especially when faced with choices, is this, what should I do right now? Because we are in the consciousness that is steeped in delusion, the same consciousness cannot find the way out. That's where the guru comes in. So attunement to the guru gives us clarity, especially those of us that are meditators, gives us clarity through the voice of intuition of what the right thing to do is. And more importantly, what not to do. So there is clarity in that. And the nature of Guru's help is more vibrational. The words are merely a channel. There is a lot of merit to analyzing the Guru's words and thinking and deriving some guidance from it. But even more, it is in meditation, in other places, simply closing your eyes every now and then and attuning to the Guru's consciousness will help us receive the Guru's help, will open us to receive the Guru's help, not so much in the form of instruction, although sometimes, you know, you hear people saying things like, oh, I was at a mall, very crowded, and there's no parking spot, and I asked my guru and the parking spot opened up. Well, good for you if it did that, good for you if that's how you want to use your guru, but that's not the point. It is more that even when we sit in meditation, what do we do? Well, it is an act of offering up. What do we offer it up to? We offer it up to the consciousness of the guru. Then we make our consciousness something that he can work with. So that's primarily the nature of the relationship. So when Swamiji went to Yogananda for the first time, Yogananda asked him that, he basically said, I demand your complete loyalty. And then in answer to Swami's question of, well, how can I do that? And he'd say, I promise that I won't ask you to do anything God didn't guide me to. Meaning, it is that the guru's guidance that is received in the heart intuitively, vibrationally, is a way of attuning to God's will. Okay, so that's kind of the best way of looking at it. There is, of course, the importance of doing the technique, but again, those of you that are Kriyabans, you know that much of it comes through grace and vibration, as it does with the actual technique itself. So it's technique is a way of technique, and study of the writings are a way of our self-effort, so that the guru can work through that.
Thank you.
Okay.
That was so helpful. We also just had, is it Mary? Marie. And its pronunciations here are so beautiful, and they're different for me in the American sense. But yes, Marie, and then Rainey from New Zealand also just wanted to say hello and thank you. They are really glad to be with you as well. And we just had a really good question pop in, and one before from Monica about how do we catch anger before it comes out? the thought that precedes it.
How do we stop the headstand from falling?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. By the time anger has made its appearance in the consciousness, it's more often than not a little bit too late, because there is a beautiful verse in the Bhagavad Gita. I want to say it simply because of the quality of its vibration. It's about anger. Okay, so here's what it says. Dhyayato vishayan pumsah sangasteshu upajayate sangat sanjayate kamat krodho bhijayate krodhat bhavati sammohah sammohat smriti vibhramaha smriti bhramshat buddhi nasho buddhi nashat pranashyati. Doesn't that sound wonderful? It's the entire Gita is meant to be chanted, but right in there, it says, when dwelling on, translating it fully requires more time than what we have, but it says that anger comes from unfulfilled desire, and unfulfilled desire only. There is really, other than an anger directed towards oneself, the self-righteous anger of transformation, outward anger towards other people only comes because we didn't have it. And the word there, kamat krodho bhijayate, abhijayate means anger sprouts like a fountain, like a flame. So by the time anger comes, you already have a flamethrower, which is in full swing. So the trick there, anger cannot be repressed or contained. It can only be muted, because the power is quite overwhelming. It takes somebody of extraordinary self-control to actually, in the midst of anger, get it back. The trick in dealing with anger, even in the midst of it, is to try our best to replace it with the opposite of it. And in almost all situations, the opposite of anger is love. You're angry at somebody, try it next time. sending that sense of blessing, wanting their highest good, reminding yourself how much you love them, putting yourself in their shoes, empathy, all of those are the opposite of anger. Okay, so that's what the Gita verse says, that's what Patanjali says, and Swami's written about it again and again, is anger is to be transmuted, not contained, or more to the point, is not to be controlled. That's, I mean, you control it today, but maybe 10 minutes from now, you'll say something nasty, which says, now, what is that all about? Right? I'm sure we've never done that, but you can imagine. So I hope that helps, but be respectful of your anger. Don't, you're kind of playing with fire there. So just kind of apply the opposite feeling and a little bit of discernment before it takes root.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing the chanting of the Gita to us. That's it goes beyond thought. It's just right into the vibration, like you're saying, and it's very powerful. So I've never personally experienced that. So I want to just thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Shelley from New Zealand has said the same thing. Thank you so much. I've been really enjoying listening to your talks recently on YouTube. So it's, and she says, one of the things I've been trying to do more than often is that when I observe myself behaving or thinking in a way that is contractive, is to say, well, there's that again, and then just carry on. Much appreciated for the visualization you offered at the end of your talk. So yeah, I think it's been a gift to have that. So it's
you know, there's one thing that you said, which actually it bears a little bit of emphasis. Well, there's that again. You see, Swami said, it was very wonderful for me when I heard Swami say this. He said that if we are in a lifetime where we say that, okay, we need to find God, nothing else works, he says, you're already far ahead. You're already, meaning much of the karmic burden's already behind you. There's only a few things left. And he said, we come into this lifetime, get this is so great. He says, we come into this lifetime just to learn a few lessons, maybe 1, 2, or 3. And that's it. So it's not that far off. And so when you look at, well, there's that again, pay careful attention to it, because that may well be the lesson. That may be it, or 1 or 2 or 3 of it. Or if you say, oh, if I only had a little more money, if only this were not happening, then I could dedicate all my life to God. Then look at that carefully, because the lesson might not be so much that we need to have whatever, if I only. It may be that that's what we need to transcend or give up attachment to. So what you brought up, I want to thank you for bringing it up. If you say, well, there's that again, oh, that might be God talking to you in no uncertain terms. Look, you're not that far away. There may be just this and a few other things. So pay close attention. That's
so true.
Could we ask one more favor of you, Murali? Would you like to lead us in, a healing prayer?
Some kind of way, just to close this
beautiful, time together.
Yeah, certainly. Let's do healing prayers. Let's sit up straight. Holding your hands in front of your heart, close your eyes. Gaze at the spiritual eye. And bring there all those souls across the world who are in need of healing, whether it is because of wars, because of disease, or any number of other ways that our karma brings suffering, bring them to your spiritual eye. And also those close to you who are in special need of healing. Include them as well. Say their names out loud if it helps you visualize them better. See them surrounded clearly by Divine Mother's healing light. And pray with me. Divine Mother, thou art omnipresent. Thou art in all thy children. Thou art in these souls. Manifest thy healing presence in their bodies, in their minds, and in their souls. Cupping your palms together, let's send Divine Mother's light on the waves of 3 ohms. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Amen.
Thank you, everybody. Such a
Thank you,
lovely
wonderful
satsang.
souls.
Have a beautiful,
Have a blessed Sunday.
have a beautiful rest of your day as well. Everyone's just
Thank you
chatting
very
in. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We just really enjoyed having you. Perhaps we'll get to
Thank
have
you
you
all.
again.
Thank you all for the chance to spend this time with you. It's wonderful.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for coming.